Welcome to Old Speaks. Today we have a painful story about a daughter who snapped at her mom after being told she's too small to have standards when choosing a husband. A story full of resentment, hard work, and words that hurt deeply. Every story here is 100% real. Let's begin. Was I wrong for snapping at my mom after she said I'm too small to have standards? I'm in an arranged marriage process right now. My mom told me I'm too small to have standards when it comes to choosing a husband. I completely lost it and snapped back something like, I'm not you or one of your sisters or nieces who have no degrees. I have 3 degrees, and I'm exactly who I think I am. I don't actually believe people without degrees are worth less. I was just so angry because it felt like she was saying I have nothing to offer and should just settle. I worked incredibly hard for my education. It cost me my mental and physical health, and it felt like she was completely dismissing my achievements and my right to have standards. I know it was wrong to bring her sisters and nieces into it, but I'm still really hurt by what she said. Was I wrong for not caring about my dad's new baby? My parents are split up and I live with my mom full-time. I only see my dad on rare occasions. They split when I was 7 and my dad has made almost no effort at all to see me or interact with me. The most he's done is stuff like take me to some pop-up fairground when I was 8 or taking me to McDonald's when I see him maybe once every few months. To be fair, me and my mom lived in Czechia when I was 10 to 14, so he couldn't have seen me during that time, but he still didn't make any effort before or after that period either. The day before yesterday, I saw him, and he told me things about his new baby that his wife had last month. He was talking about me meeting the baby because it's my half-sibling and that it would be cool and cute. I already knew about the baby. It wasn't a surprise. I told him I don't want to meet the baby. When he asked why, I said I don't have anything to do with the baby. It would just be like meeting some random baby. He said, "Don't you think it would be fun to see your sibling?" I'm an only child, so that's probably a factor. Maybe it was the way I said it, but he got upset and we fell out. He said I should be happy to see a new sibling and that he thought I would want to. He told me I shouldn't brush it off so quickly and that I should consider if I would ever want to meet my sibling in the future. I probably didn't handle it very well. I was annoyed and told him why would I want to? I have nothing to do with it. It's not my mom's baby. I don't live with the baby, and I barely see him, so I just don't get it. He said something after that, but I forgot what it was. We moved on from the argument. I ate some food, and it kinda got better, but it was still tense and weird. Am I the asshole for not really caring about his new baby or for how I spoke to him? I'm 15, male. I snapped and knocked my friend's phone away after she tried to take photos of the mess. I, 18F, recently went on a trip with my 2 close friends, both 18F. Let's call them friend 1 and friend 2. We stayed in a spare apartment owned by one of friend 1's relatives. On the first night, friend 2 accidentally spilled bright red glitter nail polish all over the beige carpet. She immediately felt awful. I went straight to help her clean it up while friend 1 mostly stood there saying how bad it was. Friend 1 then called her mom to tell her what happened. Friend 2 and I asked her to wait until we had at least tried to fix it first, but she ignored us. While friend 2 searched for cleaning supplies, friend 1 tried to take a picture of the stain to send to her family and the apartment owner. Without thinking, I reached over and tapped her phone to stop her from taking the photo because friend 2 was already mortified. I wasn't trying to damage it, but the phone slipped out of her hand onto the carpet. It wasn't damaged at all. Friend 1 immediately screamed in my face, swearing and accusing me of throwing her brand new phone across the room and almost breaking it. I didn't argue. I just went to my room to calm down. A little later, friend 2 and I ran to a nearby shop for carpet cleaner and nail polish remover. Friend 1 kept calling us to hurry up and telling us what to look for. When we got back, she took ages to open the door while she was still on the phone with her mom. Back inside, friend 2 was close to tears while we scrubbed the carpet together. Friend 1 and her mom continued making her feel worse instead of helping. Friend 1 kept pouring water on the carpet while telling me I was cleaning it wrong, even though I knew more about cleaning carpet than she did. I asked her to stop for a minute, and when she didn't, I took the bottle from her hand and put it beside me. She exploded again, screaming in the same high-pitched way, swearing, and saying I always have to be in control and think I know everything. I was furious and briefly wanted to throw the water on her, but I didn't. Instead, I raised my voice and told her she had no right to scream and swear at me while I was trying to help fix the situation and she was doing nothing. Then I left the apartment and sat by a nearby river to calm down. Later that evening, we sat down to talk. I mostly stayed quiet while friend one listed everything I had supposedly done wrong. It didn't feel like a discussion. It felt like another telling off. I know I probably shouldn't have touched her phone, even though I wasn't trying to damage it and it wasn't damaged. But I also don't think taking photos to send around while our friend was already panicking was the right thing to do. And I don't think being screamed and sworn at twice was justified. By the way, we managed to get the stain out after 2 days of staying at the house. Edit. A few things people seem to have misunderstood. I didn't slap friend one or hit her phone. I lightly tapped the phone to angle the camera away. I don't believe I used enough force to make it fall, and the phone wasn't damaged. I accidentally pushed it from her hand, not on purpose. Also, we never told friend one she couldn't tell her mom. We just asked her to give us a chance to try and clean up the spill first before involving anyone, especially since friend two was already panicking. At that point, friend one wasn't helping clean. She was mainly telling friend two how awful the situation was and criticizing how we were cleaning instead of offering practical help. I told my daughter she has no right to mourn or attend her ex-friend's funeral. New account because my daughter knows my other one. When my daughter was in school, she became close friends with a girl named Kelly. They stayed friends through college, and my daughter was even one of Kelly's bridesmaids when she got married. To explain where my daughter's attitude comes from, my ex-husband cheated on me repeatedly, and our marriage ended very badly. My daughter no longer speaks to her father, and she absolutely despises cheating. About 7 years ago, my daughter became convinced that Kelly was cheating on her husband. She started harassing Kelly online and essentially blew up her life. By the time my daughter found out that the man she had seen Kelly with was actually a relative, they were just having dinner at a fancy restaurant, it was already too late. Kelly's marriage had fallen apart, and because we live in a very religious community, Kelly was ostracized by many people. They had a huge falling out. It basically came down to my daughter destroying Kelly's life. Kelly blocked her on everything and eventually moved away. Kelly hated my daughter after that, and so did her mother. I still run into Kelly's mother occasionally, and she has made her feelings about my daughter very clear. The issue is that Kelly recently passed away. My daughter found out through a Facebook post. The funeral is this weekend, 2 states away. My daughter was planning to attend. I told her I thought it was a terrible idea. She said she needed to go, and I told her again that she shouldn't. We got into an argument, and she said she had every right to mourn her friend and go to the funeral. I told her she really didn't have the right to mourn Kelly or attend the funeral, because Kelly hated her after everything that happened, and because my daughter had destroyed her life. She hasn't spoken to me since. Now I'm wondering if I should warn Kelly's family that my daughter might show up, or if I might be in the wrong here. She invited me to dinner. Then another guy showed up to take her home. I have been talking to this girl for a while now, and we've been spending a lot of time together. Earlier today, she invited me to grab dinner after I got off work. I was having a pretty rough day, so I called her to confirm if the invitation was still on, and she said yes. She mentioned that her car wasn't working and that her sister was giving her a ride there. I assumed that meant her sister would also be picking her up afterward, so I didn't think much of it. We met up, had dinner, and honestly had a good time. We were talking, everything seemed normal. Toward the end of dinner, a guy walked into the restaurant that I recognized. He's someone she's been talking to and hanging out with more and more recently. To make it even weirder, he has the exact same first name as me. He walked over to our table, sat down right next to her, and she casually told me that he was taking her home. This was the first time I heard anything about it. She had apparently asked him to come pick her up, but never mentioned it to me beforehand. I'll admit it bothered me. From my perspective, it felt awkward and kind of disrespectful. If she had simply asked me to take her home, I would have said yes without hesitation. Instead, I found out at the end of what I thought was a really nice dinner that another guy was coming to pick her up. I got quiet, finished the rest of my food, and said I was going to head out. I wasn't rude or yelling. I just didn't really want to sit there and make small talk while another guy was waiting to take her home. She got upset with me and started acting like I was doing something wrong for just getting up and leaving. She said I was overreacting because she had already arranged for him to pick her up. Now I'm wondering if I was in the wrong. I understand she can get a ride from whoever she wants since we're not officially dating, but I also feel like it would have been common courtesy to mention ahead of time that another guy was going to show up at the end of our dinner. So, was I wrong for leaving? Okay, let's move on to the next story. I lost my temper at work after being suddenly sent back to my old job. I've been at my job for almost 3 years. My manager started a few months after me. In that time, I've been massively overworked. There used to be 3 of us doing the same job. One person got moved to a different role and was never replaced. When the manager was asked about it, she said that person barely did anything in the role, so a replacement wasn't needed. That wasn't true. It was around 80% of her workload. Since then, both me and my remaining colleague have told management multiple times how overworked we are, but nothing ever happened. During all this, my manager kept telling me there would be a team lead job opening and that she would start showing me extra duties to prepare me for it. Then they hired someone completely new with no experience in the role. Within 4 months, that person was promoted to team lead. Later, the higher-ups complained about how behind we were. The manager held a huge meeting and yelled at me and my colleague in front of the entire department. After that, I went off sick with mental health issues and had to fight just to get some basic reasonable adjustments. Fast forward to April. I got offered a secondment to the job I actually want to do long-term. It was originally only supposed to be for a few months, but then I was told it would be a minimum of 6 months. At one point, the manager even said to me, "You don't know this, but it's being made permanent." Last month, I had my 2-month review and was told I was doing amazing, that I was picking the job up much faster than expected. The very next day, I was called into a meeting with the team lead from my old job, my current team lead, and another colleague. They told me I was being put back into my old job earlier than planned. I was shocked. I said I had been told 6 months. They replied that I was only told 3. I didn't mention the permanent comment, but this is where I may have been wrong. I lost my temper and told the team lead that he couldn't do his job and that he was bad at it. Afterwards, I emailed HR and complained. Not about being sent back to my old job, I understand these things happen, but about the way I was told. No one spoke to me privately first. I told HR exactly what I said, and I also apologized to the team lead. I've since been told that I really upset him. So, was I wrong? I told my kids, if my wife isn't invited, I'm not coming either. My ex-wife and I got divorced when all of our kids were already adults. The marriage wasn't a good one. I stayed mainly for the kids, and I regret that now. I'll call her Pearl for this story. We both worked, but she found no joy in her job. There was constant arguing, and she was extremely unpleasant toward me after bad days. She also had addictive habits. She would become obsessed with something and do it nonstop. She lost multiple jobs because of this. When I divorced her, she went downhill. She fell heavily into alcohol and later passed away after a car accident while she was drunk. The kids took the divorce badly, and her death made things even worse. I offered to pay for counseling, but they refused. They still blame me for their mom's passing. Dating made everything harder. They believe I'm replacing their mom, and when I got married, they became very hostile toward my new wife. She has done nothing wrong to them, yet they treat her poorly. I've spoken to them multiple times, and they only act civil to her face. The issue is this. My daughter is having her engagement dinner, and I'm the only one who was invited. When I asked why, she told me it was only for family and that my wife isn't family. I told her that my wife isn't going anywhere, and if she isn't invited, then I'm not coming either. That started an argument, and now she's furious. My other kids are saying the same thing, that my wife isn't family. I asked them if that means I can refuse to invite their partners to things because marriage doesn't make someone family. They said that was different. I'm holding strong on this, but they all think I'm the bad one here. Timeline for clarity. The divorce took about 1.5 years to finalize. Pearl passed away about 1.5 years after the divorce was final, around 3 years after I first brought up divorce. I was already dating my current wife when Pearl passed. I married her about 2.5 years after Pearl's death. My daughter got engaged about 1.5 years after we got married. So overall, it's been 7 years since the divorce and I moved out, and 4 years since Pearl's death. I told my neighbor to stop parking in my parking space, and she left a note on my doorstep. I live in a block of flats in the UK that has one allocated parking space per plot number. They are clearly numbered with the plot numbers. I don't actually have a car, so my space is empty most of the time. However, there was an incident a few days ago that I'd like an opinion on. My neighbor and her husband both have a car, but they only have one allocated space between them. Her husband usually takes their assigned spot, and she just parks wherever she can. She had been parking in a different neighbor's space until about 2 weeks ago, when that neighbor got a car themselves and understandably asked her to stop. After that, she simply started using my space because it's mostly empty. This was frustrating, but I let it slide, until my mother-in-law came to drop my son home and found my space taken by the neighbor's car. She ended up parking in another neighbor's space while they happened to be out, because there was nowhere else available. I was worried it would cause issues when that person returned, but my mother-in-law only stayed briefly before leaving. That was the moment I had enough. I wrote a note and put it on the neighbor's windscreen under the wiper blade. I explained the situation and politely asked her to stop parking there, because I may need the space for any guests I have over. I also wrote my door number and plot number so it was clear. I thought that would be the end of it. But yesterday morning I woke up to find that same piece of paper on my doorstep with her writing on the back. Her response was basically that she and her husband are finding it difficult to both park here overnight, and that they're usually both gone during the day for work. She also said my mother-in-law should have used the visitor bays instead. She's completely missed the point. Whether my mother-in-law should have used a visitor bay is irrelevant. It's my space, and if I want my guests to park in my space, they should be able to. Also, what would she do if I went out and bought a car tomorrow? It's not my responsibility that both she and her husband have cars. She shouldn't just assume that because my space is empty, it's okay for her to use it without even asking. Now she's making me feel petty because I don't even have a car. But that's not the point. If anything, I think leaving a note on my doorstep arguing with me is the petty part. Edit. I'm in the UK. Towing is not an option here. I called my best friend selfish after she cared more about getting in trouble than about me. I, 17F, went out with my best friend and a couple of other friends for dinner. On the way to the restaurant, my friend offered me a hit from her vape. I usually don't, but I was bored, so I took one single hit. When we got to the restaurant, my stomach suddenly started hurting badly. I went outside and sat down because I felt like I was going to be sick. The feeling eased a bit, so I went back inside and we were seated. That's when I started feeling really terrible. I was sweating a lot, I felt extremely weak, and my stomach was in a lot of pain. I stood up to go to the bathroom but bumped into several people. My vision was spinning and my legs were shaking. Then my legs gave out and I fell. I was sitting on the floor, dazed, with my best friend next to me. She kept telling me it was just in my head and that I was probably reacting badly to the vape because I have a low tolerance. A waitress came over and asked if we needed medical help. I said no, but they called emergency services anyway. My best friend started panicking because she thought it was from the vape and that we could get in trouble for being underage. She called her mom. The emergency responders arrived, and so did my best friend's mom. I recovered pretty quickly and didn't need to go to the hospital. They called my mom and she took me home. It turned out this was all caused by a new medication I had started that day, which made my blood sugar spike dramatically. The emergency responders told me that while the vape might have made the symptoms a little worse, one single hit wouldn't have caused this on its own. The next day, I told my best friend about the medication and what really happened. She told me that what I did was selfish and that I needed to think about how my actions affect other people. She said I shouldn't have used the vape while on a new medication and that I completely embarrassed our friends. She also complained that she didn't get to eat any of the food. She said it was a miracle her mom came to talk to the emergency responders. I explained that the responders didn't care about us being underage. Their job was to make sure I was okay. But she was completely convinced that her mom being there was the only reason we didn't get reported. It seemed to me that she was more concerned about getting in trouble than about whether I was okay. All I kept hearing was that I was an embarrassment that night and that everything was my fault. I told her that and said her reaction felt selfish. She got angry and said this could have been prevented if I just hadn't taken that hit. Because of me, they didn't get to eat, they went somewhere else later, and I made a scene at the restaurant. I understand where she's coming from, but I felt really sad because I didn't expect her to react that way. We haven't talked since, and I know she's still upset with me. Was I wrong for calling her selfish? My mother-in-law cut a bunch of flowers from my yard without asking me. Hi everyone. We recently moved into our forever home a few years ago, and a lot has happened since then. My wife and I had a baby boy, and life has been amazing. But with a kid, it's also been stressful and busy. As a way to decompress and make the house feel more like ours, I've been landscaping and planting shrubs and all kinds of plants around the yard. It's been really helpful for stress relief, and it's cool to watch everything grow and see the hard work finally pay off. Long story short, my mother-in-law has been nothing but disrespectful when it comes to the early years with our son. She's constantly crossed boundaries and gone against what my wife and I said, mostly about safety concerns. Felt really violating. I've already said my piece with her and moved on from those issues, but as far as a relationship goes, I keep her at a distance. Today she came over to visit while I was at work. Before she left, she cut a ton of flowers from all over our yard for her own personal bouquet. My wife gave her permission, which makes me feel even more betrayed. It might sound silly to some people, but I worked really hard on those plants. It feels violating when someone just takes what they want, especially when you're not okay with them in the first place. Was I wrong for not wanting my mother-in-law to cut my flowers? I put a lockbox in our shared fridge after my roommate kept eating my meals. I live with 2 roommates, and for the most part we get along well. But one of them has zero boundaries when it comes to food. I work around 50 hours a week, so every Sunday I prep all my lunches and dinners for the entire week to save time and money. Over the past month, this roommate has taken my meals 3 different times. The first time he said he thought they were abandoned leftovers, even though they were freshly made on Sunday night. The second time he swore he would replace them, and never did. A couple of days ago, I noticed 2 of my 5 meal containers were gone again. When I asked him about it, he just shrugged and said he was starving after the gym and didn't have time to cook. Then he offered to buy me a coffee to make up for it. I was so tired of dealing with this that I ordered a clear plastic lockbox off Amazon and put all my prepped food inside it on my fridge shelf. He saw it yesterday and completely flipped out. He said I'm treating him like a criminal and making the whole apartment toxic. My other roommate agrees that he shouldn't be taking my food, but thinks putting an actual lock in the fridge is overly dramatic and has ruined the vibe. Now he's giving me the silent treatment, and the atmosphere at home is super awkward. Was I wrong for locking up my food? I believed the family rumors about my sister-in-law, and now everything is broken. Throwaway account because my brother, 31M, knows my main one. I, 27F, have a sister-in-law, 29F, whom I only met a few times before their wedding. They lived on the other side of the country, so we mostly just talked on the phone or video calls. I liked her well enough, but I didn't really know her until the wedding. Recently they moved back to our state, and the family visits often because they just had their first child. Everyone wants to meet the baby. My sister-in-law gets along great with my parents and my sister's family, but she seems tense whenever my husband, 30M, and kids, 10F and 7M, are around. My children aren't biologically mine. I married their father when the oldest was 5 and the youngest was 2, but I've always seen them as mine. She's fine when it's just me. She even calls me over to help with the baby or hang out. She's not openly rude to my husband or children, but she's noticeably colder and less welcoming toward them. It often feels like she's trying to end conversations with them as quickly as possible, or she actively tries not to include them. I tried asking my brother and her about it because I was confused. Both claimed I was imagining things. I almost believed them, until two cousins and my younger sister also noticed the same strange behavior. I started to feel like I was going crazy. She was so nice to me, but didn't seem to want my husband or children around. Then a couple of weeks ago, the extended family, cousins we've always been close to growing up, basically like unofficial siblings, got together for our annual summer bonfire. One of them pulled me aside and told me why my sister-in-law acts the way she does. She's racist. My husband and kids aren't Mexican-American like the rest of us, and she doesn't like that I married a black man. I was shocked, but it started to make sense. The different treatment, the coldness, the way it almost felt passive-aggressive toward them. My cousin who told me isn't known for spreading false rumors or useless gossip, so I believed her. The rest of the family found out about my sister-in-law's racist views that same night, and by the next morning everyone was talking badly about her. I admit I was angry too. I decided I would no longer visit her or my brother if they were going to treat my family that way. Things got bad between us. I started ignoring their calls and texts and stopped responding to them on social media. And finally, the last little story. I made my brother walk home after he said racial slurs. I, 18F, have a younger brother, 17M. For context, we're half Latin American on our mom's side and half white on our dad's side. I'm very white passing while my brother looks fully Latino. Today, I drove him to a haircut and physical therapy on my day off because our parents were busy and he failed his driver's test. On the way home, we started joking around, calling each other stupid and dumb like siblings do. Then, completely out of nowhere, he told me to shut the F*** up and used a racial slur. I was shocked and immediately tore into him. He tried to justify it by saying he calls his black friends that all the time and they don't care because he looks Latino. I told him that didn't make it okay. Then he brought up another racial slur, an anti-Asian one, and said, "It's just a word." We live in a predominantly Asian area, which made it even worse. I continued to argue with him, and he focused on how I was being controlling. My brother is an athlete and had real D1 potential, but this season hasn't gone well. My dad has been frustrated because my brother stopped putting effort into recruiting and keeps letting opportunities slip away. My brother and I have always kind of been the golden kids on my dad's side. This past year, I got into a top university, so I think a lot of the pressure shifted onto him. I've been pushing him to study for the SAT and reconnect with recruiters, but he always says I'm controlling. He started venting that it wasn't fair because I'm naturally smart, and that I don't understand real hard work. It felt like he was dismissing how hard I've worked, but it was also probably the most vulnerable conversation we've ever had. Despite that, I did not forget what he said earlier. About a quarter mile from our house, I pulled over and told him he could walk the rest of the way. He looked genuinely shocked. We sat there for about 10 minutes before he got out. As he walked away, he yelled that he didn't care and repeated the racial slur around 10 more times. We live in a very safe neighborhood, and he's 5 feet 10 inches, athletic, and perfectly capable of walking home. When I got home, I told my dad everything while my brother called my mom. My mom called me in a frenzy. I explained how he used racial slurs, which he left out of his version, but she didn't seem to care. My dad said he didn't blame me for making him walk. My mom is furious. She says what I did was especially cruel because I waited until after we'd had such a vulnerable conversation. She wants to take away my car. My parents bought it, so I can't really argue, and make me quit my job. My brother agrees that I blindsided him. My dad thinks I'm right, but also isn't planning to punish my brother. So, was I wrong?